just a little boy, I asked my father, what will I be? Will I be handsome? Will I be rich? Is what he said to me. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. What will be, will be.
Hello, everybody. This is Alicia and Liz, and we're the Decoded TV network, and this is From Decoded. And today we wanted to chat a little bit about just kind of the theories behind what is Fromville and what's happening right now, because we're coming to the end of the second season. And there's a whole lot of mysteries and questions still out there that are fun to speculate about as we go into the finale and then into season 3. So yeah, let's take it away. Liz, how are you? Did you enjoy episode 9?
I did.
Good. Yeah.
And I've enjoyed this season. It's gone by so quickly.
It does. Man, these 10 episode seasons, as much as that there are so many good things about those types of, the way they do that now, but sometimes, it just is so fast. I'm like, oh, I need more.
No, boo, give me a good 24 episode season.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so let's just jump right on in. Obviously we don't have any more answers than anybody else does, but really wanted to talk about what could be going on there. And we've discussed a bit just between ourselves and in some of our other deep dives and theory videos about the paradox of like dreams and nightmares versus reality, and what's real and what isn't, and how those lines are becoming more and more blurry as things progress. And then also looking at it in terms of what is the goal of whoever or whatever this place is. What are they trying to do, and how are they trying to execute that goal?
And it's not a goddamn government experiment, Jim.
Yes, it's not a government experiment. There's no mole.
We think.
We think, right? Yeah, we can't talk in absolutes. This is true.
Well, and because with this most recent episode, it seems like all bets are off in a way.
Oh, yeah.
All of a sudden, you can die in your sleep.
Right? Which is terrifying.
Daytime,
yeah.
While taking a little afternoon nap.
Yeah. I was afraid that it was maybe heading this direction once we, especially when we saw the ballerina, because it felt so real. It felt so probable that was kind of maybe where they were heading. So I was sad for them that it does seem to be the case.
I know.
So let's talk a bit first about like maybe what the motivation is. And you touched on when we were chatting beforehand about, yes, they're trying to. So Boyd says in at some point, he says that he feels like the forest or the, I don't know, entity of this place, whatever it is, that they feed on their pain and their fear. And Sarah kind of takes it a step further in this episode with her theories. But what were your thoughts on how they are trying to get into these people's heads and drive them, insane?
I keep going back to this idea that there's such a element of childhood fears, play, games, just everything reminds me of childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really know how to take that to an answer.
Right.
But I've noticed things like, what is driving their fear? Monsters that live in the woods and come out at night, and they've got, sharp teeth, and they smile in a creepy way, and that kind of stuff. You don't have monsters coming out and saying your wife might be cheating on you, or your child might die of cancer.
Yeah, that's true.
Really basic fears.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The talisman are almost like night lights, like
Ooh, yeah. I like that.
childlike rules. Like if it gets on
Yeah.
the ground, then it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Like a game you might make up as a kid.
right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna jump on my bed, and if I do it in 3 steps, then the monster can't grab my ankles.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. That's a
And then
great, really great point. Yeah.
the music box and the ballerina. It's a
Mhm.
perversion of a child's toy.
Right. And so
So
much of what we saw in the tunnels too were childlike toys. At least you had the dummy,
yeah,
the doll you had. I think there was even like maybe
there was a
the
tricycle.
tricycle. Yeah, there were things in there that were very childlike. Yeah.
The way that the whole music box rule
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of a children's game, musical chairs.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm.
the way the monsters move slowly. It's almost like red light, green light. I just
Yeah.
keep going back to children. But
Looking at what might be going on with the children needing help, I wonder if this is probably not the case, but I wonder if they are indeed the ones that are trying to trap and scare these people because they're trying to find somebody that will let them out of whatever.
like pay attention.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's an idea.
um and try to figure this out so that somebody can come and free us
Hmm.
from whatever they're imprisoned in, presumably in that tower, in that lighthouse or whatever. And so
Yeah.
until they are freed, nobody else is free. And that could kind of tie into the
Hey,
riddle.
look what you did.
See, when I talk to you, I like start to have all of these little like ooh moments.
Yeah, I'll take
So
all
yeah.
the credit. Yeah. No, but I think we've got a good possible piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
It may not be.
I loved how I saw the well, I don't know, it kind of all blends together sometimes. So I don't know if this was like the end of episode 9 or if this was like a little preview from episode 10. But Jade is talking about how he's like, we have pieces of a puzzle but we don't know, we don't have enough information. I was like, "Oh my god, I literally said that in our last podcast about it was the exact analogy that I used."
So funny. The writers are stealing
yeah.
from us.
They are. But yeah, so yeah, because I was just trying to think about how to tie in the kids with what's going on and wondering if there wasn't necessarily a big bad, but that it's all meant to push the people further until they're able to rescue them or free them in the way that they're needing. So we'll just keep making things worse, because if we're not out of here, if we're not freed, then neither are you. So you better figure it out.
I really like that.
So that could be, yeah.
It's not evil children. It's
right.
Frustrated children.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think I was going to add to the idea of fear being driven by childhood fears with the way that the cries that the monsters do at night. They're like really, really scary.
True.
Like, the monsters with the big sharp teeth smiling like the big bad wolf while hiding in familiar costumes. Like, grandmother, is that you?
Oh, that's great, Liz. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Hiding in plain sight in that way. Yeah, to like lure you into thinking they're safe when they're not.
Right. That's a scary thing for a child, but that's in so many fairy tales.
Right.
The idea of children being in a tower, that's another fairy tale trope.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a fairy tale element to this.
I think so. Even thinking about, this isn't along the lines of a fairy tale, or maybe it is, but in the opening credits we see that thing that kind of looks like a tornado surrounding the houses, and thinking about like fears and nightmares. That was something that I was terrified of growing up here in Texas. And so Sarah has lots of theories. But if they're playing on people's fears in addition to their pain, things like a tornado hitting your house or whatever, is certainly one of those types of fears that like is driven by a child who doesn't necessarily know how to like self-soothe, and also to look at logic and reason to go, okay, this fear might be irrational.
Yeah. It's
So
also,
just like the monsters and whatnot.
yeah, it's a real primal fear too. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
can't control Mother Nature. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was
I
trying to think about how cicadas might fit in, but worms
mm-hmm.
can be pretty
So
scary.
okay, so what Sarah says, I'll kind of, this is probably a good time to talk about this a little bit.
Yes.
Sarah is talking to Kenny, and as insufferable as they can be together in particular, I hope people don't fast forward through that, because I think a lot of times Sarah's dropping lots of like, clues, or at least giving us as the audience and the other people in the towns that care, that care to listen to her, something to think about.
Yeah.
And so there was I'm gonna pull it up so I can credit appropriately. So on Reddit, in the From TV Epics thread, J. Cole for real says that there shows us how there's some interesting parallels from 1-9 to 2-9 with Sarah and her talking about what might be going on. And one of them certainly is her referencing Nathan and his theories or his fears. But in episode 1-9, her and Boyd, when they're walking through the forest, at some point, Sarah says Nathan had a theory about this place, that if we tried to leave, if we pushed too hard, then something would push back. So that definitely.
We saw that happen in season 1 with the storm.
Right.
When they tried to build the radio tower.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the characters even says it, the one that got the shard of glass by her eye.
Right.
Christy, I believe. We made it angry.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also, even like as they were in the forest, potentially getting close to an answer or an escape route. That's when things started going batty with the spiders and the jostling of the tent and all of that stuff, trying to keep them from finding the truth, maybe.
They get pulled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, so in 2-9, Sarah says, she talks about Nathan and his fears. And she says that Nathan was extremely afraid of cicadas and thought that they were monsters. Which I was tickled by, because that was also something that we had discussed last episode. But I took it in the last episode, I was a bit more literal about that, right? About how the cicadas maybe were the monsters. But then watching this, it's like, okay, well, maybe not literally, but figuratively they are. And that's where Sarah was going with this, I think, which is that like Nathan was terrified of cicadas and thought that they were monsters. What if it's not just like that this place feeds on our pain, but what if it's that okay, what if so she says, what if the people that die here, what if their fears become part of the forest?
I was going to say fear is like the gas that drives the engine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so maybe that's what maybe that is what the cicadas are, right? It's just Nathan's fear manifested. And if there was a tornado at some point, that was someone else's fear manifested. So I'm interested to go back and look at some of the different things that have happened to see if there might be other examples and clues of that would track with that theory. But I thought it definitely was a clue and sort of showed us maybe where we should be looking.
Well, okay, now this isn't, I don't know how this would fall into the theory, but Kenny's worst fear is that Christy's fiance would show up.
Well, that's true. Yeah. No, that is true. It's a good point. Elgin, maybe he had a fear of drowning. Maybe that's why he got into the bath with his clothes on.
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe he just has some fear or aversion to water for one reason or another. And so that's why that happened. Or I don't know. I don't think it has to coincide, though. I take that back, because I don't think it has to coincide with your specific fear. I think what she meant is just like they sort of collect fear. The forest or whatever's going on collects fear, and then they use those fears to torture everybody.
And this is getting even darker. Hello, Dark Alicia. Meet Dark Liz.
Oh, yes. Okay. I'm excited to meet you, Dark Liz.
Hello. What if Fromville, what if it takes your fears and kind of perverts them? Like, so what if Fatima, told she can't get pregnant, gets pregnant, and then loses the baby?
Right.
They keep getting the rug pulled out from under them.
Like she said, is this like them torturing me? Are they gonna, I'm afraid to be happy about this because I believe it'll be taken away.
But I was gonna say, what's the opposite of fear? Could be strength or bravery, but what about hope?
Yeah.
It almost seems like the town keeps giving them hope and then yanking it away. Hope in the form of the tower, the radio tower. Nope,
Yeah.
can't have that. You miss your fiance. Here she is, back on heroin. Yeah.
No, those are great. Yeah, you're right. That's really interesting.
It would be a real dark way of using your fears.
You're right. Wow. It is dark, but I think that's a great observation. And yeah, it goes beyond tangible things.
Well, and here are talisman that keep us safe at night from the monsters. They don't work anymore. Take an afternoon nap, and the same thing happens to you as if it were nighttime and you didn't have a talisman.
Right. Yeah.
And they're never allowed to feel safe.
Right.
They're never allowed to have anything good.
Exactly. Yeah. Because then they would get comfortable. Like it's almost like, okay, let's go with the theory that perhaps the kids are creating all of this to try and be freed from wherever they're imprisoned.
Right.
So yeah, if people get too comfortable there and feel too safe, then people aren't trying to find a way out, which maybe ideally leads to freeing the kids. If people are, so yeah, anytime they start to get more comfortable, it's like, wait a minute, even having all this bus of people in, everything's too safe now and too regulated, and because they figured it out. Right. So we've got to like bring some fresh blood in to have people freak out, to keep that fear or to keep that hope, in that cycle, that loop, to keep it going.
Alicia, yes. To get the chaos going.
Right.
Hello, Randall. Yeah.
Frickin' Randall.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. In the opening credits for the show, I've been paying more and more attention to them. I hate the theme song, so I always fast forward. But I just put mute on and I watch the credits. And the drawings seem to be telling a story of, there's what we can assume, I think now, is Victor and Eloise. They're holding hands. And then the next picture is sad Victor alone crying. There's a bed with children's toys on it. And then the next shot is a drawing of a dead kid and a teddy bear in a pool of blood. There's a shot of like a playground and the spinny thing going around with a dead body behind it.
Yeah. You're right.
A cozy looking bedroom. And the next shot is a drawing of a kid on his bed screaming as he falls into darkness.
Wow. Ooh, and how about this? Oh my gosh. And like, Liz, those are great. You're absolutely right. And it just occurred to me, we have one of the questions or mysteries, I think, of the show is, why are there no children there aside from Ethan?
Right.
Why? Well, perhaps it's because if
They're
this is
power.
Well, no, but perhaps it's that too, but perhaps it's because if the kids are pulling all of the strings here, the ghosts of these children that are trapped, essentially, then, and they're kids themselves, why would they wouldn't want to bring in other kids and punish them, right? Because the bad guy is likely whatever adults did to them that put them in the tower and then trapped their souls there.
So they need adults to get them out.
Right. They want to torture the adult. They want to torture adults too, but not kids. Right. Like we don't want to, scare kids, which is why Ethan is probably so safe in a way from
Right.
whatever.
And
And
why the boy in white reappears.
exactly, yeah,
Okay.
because the innocence of Ethan, and so they're trying to, even though Ethan's there, he's there because perhaps he was perhaps he was brought there purposefully, because they felt like they needed a child to be able to start seeing things from a child perspective. And so, they want to protect him, but they also think that, hey, perhaps this could be useful
Yeah. Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then if you look at the nursery rhyme that didn't exist, Bhakta.
Yeah. That was the most awkward
God, cannot. But
ever.
if you go back to the nursery rhyme, they touch, they break, they steal, no one here is free. It could be said that a lot of times kids touch things that they shouldn't. They break things, or they might steal something, or at least, and not know any better, or not care because they're kids, and whatever. So perhaps that's where the rhyme's coming from, is whatever. They're not free, no one here is free, but yeah, the they touch, break, steal could be referring to the kids,
Or the bad people, the adults. Look,
that too. Yeah,
they're
either way.
touching,
Yeah.
they're breaking, they're stealing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
They're
you could go
breaking the
either way
rules.
with it, but it could be them trying to like tell these people what happened to them
Yeah.
by way of the
Yeah.
rhyme.
Ooh. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think I mentioned that last week, that they're like
Mhm.
childlike.
Yeah, yeah, you did. You definitely did. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you did. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, this is great. I can see this.
Yeah, me too. And so we talked, like, we were also discussing the monsters and like the category of monsters.
Yeah, I was trying to categorize monsters and I got real lost.
Yeah. So, certainly I don't know that we could really have a great hypothesis yet on what the monsters are, but we can at least look at some of the important things, right? So we came up with like a few different categories. We have the real monsters, the OG monsters that walk around creepily, smiling, and then attack people
at night. Yeah.
Right. We have the quote unquote friendly monsters, or a better term for that would probably be
friendly, supernatural.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So the kids, maybe Father Cautry, people ghosts that don't have the intention of killing you.
Right.
And then we've got something like tool monsters, like the music box being a tool to unleash something.
Chaos.
Fear. And then we've got like the nature monsters, which might be something like a tornado or flood, or in this case, the cicadas, stuff that's sort of coming out of the ferocity of nature.
And it would take a ferocious monster or being to control something like nature, or, a swarm of cicadas.
Yeah, there were so many cicadas. Oh, God.
And so, I swear, back and watch 1-9. Tabitha, Ethan, and Julie are looking through a pile of Victor's drawings. And I swear in one of them you can see a bunch of cicadas around a window.
Ooh, wow. Okay, I'm gonna go back and look. That's wow.
I think, pretty sure. Yeah, so the cicadas, I mean, historically they've been thought of as very fearsome insects. Historians talked about them evoking a sacred horror, a kind of fear that comes from the wonder of the repulsion that you feel when you see a cicada. That was interesting.
It's very interesting. They also can come from underground, like the nymphs. Yeah.
That the little eggs, the nymphs, they fall out of the trees, and then they burrow underground, and they live in the roots, and they live off tree sap,
right,
for years and years, and then they emerge as a fearsome creature.
Wow.
I was initially thinking, what if the cicadas are the puppeteers of the OG monsters? They're like living in the veins.
Right. Yeah.
And the blood would be like the sap, or the bile could be like the sap.
Right.
But then, you were saying you thought, no, this is more like a natural monster being controlled by.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, like, when we discussed in our last video, we were discussing the cicadas. I was thinking perhaps that was, yeah, that it was a literal interpretation. But now I'm thinking that perhaps it's more figurative, and just that, like, the monsters are monsters, the cicadas are monsters, but they're not like one and the same. It's just they're another version, exactly like you said, they're another version of a monster, like the nature monster, and I'm using it, monster as like a noun, but I really mean it more in this sense of more like the ferocity or the capability of nature to kill us, or
Destroy. Yeah.
right, exactly. And so when they're in the RV,
Yeah.
and everybody's gone, but well, not everybody's, no, they're still there yet. When they're in the RV and they start to hear the banging on the bottom of the RV, it's I mean, I'm sure that I'm wrong, but since they burrow, I think that it's not out of the realm of possibility that was actually the cicadas trying to come up from the ground, because then once they run or whatever, a ton of them swarm onto Randall.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what that was. It may not have been Abby or another like big bad, but it could be that too. It could have been somewhere within the tunnels, and but I think ultimately we're looking at something that's very supernatural that can kind of do whatever it wants. That's what it feels like.
Well, okay, here's the question. So with Randall, we see the swarm overtake him, and they're crawling on him and then eventually into his mouth, and then he's in the cicada coma, right?
Right.
But with Mary and Julie, well, with Mary, we see her alone in the room and she sees the bugs crawling in, but then when the others rush into the room, they don't see anything.
Right.
And then it's another step further with Julie. She's on the ground brushing off, nothing, but then goes into a cicada coma herself. Right. So do you think that, they're not real cicadas? They're not, how are they?
That's true.
What do you think is happening there?
Oh man, I don't know,
but
you're right.
I give upsville in
yeah. No, exactly, because I feel like every theory or like every little thing is like so easily troubleshooted, or you're like, wait a minute, this isn't consistent, so I don't know.
You put that so well. Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know. But that is puzzling. And perhaps it's because whoever's controlling it only lets you see whatever they want you to see.
I do think that Boyd, by releasing the bloodworms, released a sort of airborne toxin that functions by causing hallucinations or visions that can end up being physically harmful.
Right. Yeah.
So just as he would imagine being thrown across the room by a ballerina, Elgin might suddenly dream of being drowned in a bathtub. Or Julie, Mary, and Randall might imagine being suffocated by cicadas.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
It all seemed to stem from that.
Right. Yeah.
His interaction with Martin, and then.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think there's some info out, pretty much all of the information out on episode 10. But this is a spoiler alert, so I'm going to talk about something that I think, a conversation that happens at the beginning of episode 10 that kind of supports this a bit. So spoiler, if you don't want to hear about this conversation that starts at the top of 10, then go ahead and skip forward a little bit. But at the top of episode 10, in the transcript that's online, Sarah is talking, I think, to Boyd, but she's saying that like they're laughing at him, and that they're, that he brought it back to town and unleashed it and freed it, whatever it was, that like Martin was clearly chained up for a reason, and there were 2 other skeletons there, right? So we go back to the 3.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it makes it sound like whatever was contained there was brought into the town and allowed to start infiltrating the town because Boyd brought it with him.
Now, okay, if whatever's powering the town wants its inhabitants to get out to free them, why would they be laughing at Boyd?
Well, if I don't think that they're wanting people to get out. I think that's the point. They don't want people to get out until they're freed.
Okay.
Right? So they're going to keep you trapped there however they can and not let you go back to the real world so that maybe somebody will find us and set us free.
Right.
And then maybe that means that everybody gets to go free. We don't really know. But like that's sort of what I'm thinking is that.
No, that was a dumb question because it's using terrible tactics to motivate. So of course it would laugh at them.
Right. Yeah. Like, oh, wrong one.
Yeah.
You didn't get it right. Things are going to get worse.
Oh, dear.
And then I guess the last question along the monster line that we had from this episode is, why do we think that the monster stopped before the RV?
That was interesting.
Yeah.
Because they're smiling.
Right.
I think that points to your idea of the cicadas being under the RV. Like, up, our second wave showed up. The next big bad's here. We're just
yeah.
And watch the carnage and laugh.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good hypothesis on that. Yeah, I thought it might have had to do with Boyd being, because we talked that it seemed like now that Boyd, like after he was infected with the bloodworms, that he was going to be immune from getting attacked.
Yeah,
and when they ran, they went after everybody but Boyd. So
they followed Boyd though.
But did they, or were they heading towards where the other people were anyway?
Well, that's a good argument.
Yeah. So I was thinking that it had more to do likely with Boyd and them not being equipped to do anything to Boyd at this point because of what happened. Or they're afraid of him because he defeated Mr. Smiley.
He killed one of theirs.
Yeah. So they're kind of either it's a reverence, or I don't think that they can feel fear. I think it's probably more just like black and white,
that like a quizzical,
and or he's protected from them at this point. So
or maybe like, you're not our business anymore. You're the business of the Tower Music Box gang. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I want to say a couple things. So Sarah, in episode 1-9, when she and Boyd are out in the forest, they get to the bottle tree and Sarah's covering her ears and screaming because voices are overcoming her. And later, when she's talking to Boyd about what happened, she says, it was a voice that was different from the other voices. It said, there are things out here worse than the monsters. Tell Mr. Fish and Loaves that I was wrong. And that was Abby. And Abby reappeared.
Oh, yeah, I was wrong, meaning like I was
having to wake people up by shooting them.
Yeah.
And then Abby makes a reappearance in the RV.
Right.
And says something like, come back to me. And it looks like she means like step back in the RV, but I think she meant go back to the bottle tree.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So we can like put her in our good category.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think she is. I think she would fall under friendly ghost for sure. Yeah. And that's a great idea. My thought when that was like, oh well, she's just saying like if you let go and whatever, we can be together. But I like your idea on that better. I think that's probably quite accurate. Actually, she's trying to guide him to where he needs to go. Yeah.
Yep. Last thing I want to say was that I think right now, Sarah is the most free of anyone there. When she stands up to Kenny and says, I'm tired of being afraid. I don't want to be your monster anymore. I've lost everything, everything that I could be, everything that I could ever have hoped for, everything that I had, I've lost it. She's got nothing left to lose. Everyone hates her. She hates herself. So in a way, nothing matters, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah. And she can be, she's kind of offering to sacrifice herself, I feel like.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Box me. I'm going to play Russian roulette. But I think that's going to make her even more important than we thought she was already.
I totally agree. I think she is really key. And especially if she's always dropping these sort of clues and she's been able to, yeah, she's susceptible or open enough to be able to connect with whatever is going on there that, you know,
Yeah.
in
And
a way
she's-
that other people can't.
He's getting more solid knowledge to go along with that openness and
Right.
intuition. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, guys, we would love to hear what you have to say, what you think about some of that, about dreams and the nightmares. And I know the bottle tree is going to play heavily into what happens next. So I'm excited about that. But in the meantime, we are going to go put our tinfoil hats back on and discuss some more ideas and theories, and be back soon. All right. If you haven't already subscribed and you enjoy the content, we hope you'll subscribe. We're so grateful to everybody that has already, and all of the wonderful comments and ideas and support. So again, thank you guys. We love talking about this show and other shows. And also we're looking at it into maybe a show that we could do next, past from, and we're going to probably put out a poll on that. But if anybody has any ideas on what they would enjoy listening to us kind of break down and deep dive into, please put them in the comments, because we're starting to think about that since this one's winding down.
Good timing for it.
Yes. All right, guys. I think that's it for this one, and we will be back soon. Bye.
When I was just a little boy, I asked my father, what will I be? Will I be handsome? Will I be rich? Is what he said.